Can you believe it, Rob? 2022 Shore Conference football is in the books. But we ended on a high note. The last game in all of New Jersey this year was Toms River North on Sunday, achieving immortality. 28-7 win over Passaic Tech. Rumson earlier that day with a heartbreaker, 4-point loss to the undefeated Caldwell team that ran their winning streak to 28 straight games. Rumson was at the 10-yard line right there at the end, chance to win it. Came up a little short. Still was an incredible season. But we'll start with that, with the obviously the high note. I mean, Toms River North, first Shore Conference team to ever go 14-0. First team in New Jersey to ever go 14-0. Yeah. With the group added this year. Yep. You have the most points ever scored in a season by a New Jersey team, well over 600 for Toms River North. Just, unbelievable stats for Michael Ford. And watching that game, if Michael Ford doesn't cramp up during that game and have to be pulled out for long stretches, they win that game like 42-7. Because when he's in the game, they were moving the ball at will against a very good Passaic Tech defense. But, I mean, what an ending for Toms River North, and what an all-time season for the Mariners.
I mean, he had high expectations. He had a lot of probably internal, pressure from inside him about – he knew he had a good team. Coach Oz. And it was nice to see him smiling after the game, knowing, it was either win to Group 5 or failure. I mean,
it reminded me of years ago when Steve Antonucci had no Sean Moreno and Nick Macaluso. He said, I stay up at night thinking I can't screw this up. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I've been handed this amazing team. And people, if we're not perfect, people are going to look at me and say, how did you have all those players and that talent and not get it done? So, I'm happy for Coach Ozerwitz that he was able to exhale after that one and stamp their name among the greatest Shore Conference teams of all time.
It was a great win for not only Toms River, but the Shore Conference. A Group 5
school. I thought it was also nice, too, that, all year we've talked about Michael Ford and Pruitt and Council and, Moore and all their offensive weapons. The defense, to me, really came to play in that game against
Kazanowski, Ty, had a great game. Jeremiah Pruitt is a force. You're going to see a lot of these kids' names on all-star teams throughout the state. All state, all group. Of course, our all-star teams will have North plastered all over it, and rightfully so. Just great. Congratulations to the whole program, the school. Love reading the tweets by the principal. The whole town is excited. It's a lot of pride there in Toms River, and, they did something that nobody else did. They scored the most points, like you said, in the state of New Jersey. Think of that. The most points in New Jersey was scored with that. And, generated by a kid who's coming back next year, Michael Ford.
I know it's scary when they have their senior class isn't big, but it's very good. A lot of their key players, but Michael Ford coming back, Council, Pruitt, like an all-star team worth of guys. They could very easily run this streak to 28 games. No pressure or anything. We don't want to put that on. You look at the way that this team is constructed, and the core of that offense. Granted, they have some really good offensive linemen and guys like that they're going to have to replace from graduation. But to me, what they did was just unbelievable. First of all, it was just so awesome. For years, we wanted these group championships, and to get a Shore Conference team to take one of them home was really special in that first year. Because for years, we've tried to tell people we played great football in the Shore Conference, and now we're able to prove it. North finished in pretty much all the rankings. They're number 2 in the state, the number 1 public school behind only Bergen Catholic, sort of your perennial power that blew out Don Bosco. And, that perfectly understandable in that respect. And when you put this in perspective, obviously there's the recency bias when you're looking at the greatest teams of all time. This team just went 14-0. But I think not only what they accomplished, but the talent they have on this team. Like, we could look back in 5 years and say there was 12 college players on that team, and like 5 of them were FBS players, and 2 or 3 of them were Power 5 FBS players. So I think between the combination of the star power and what they did, you're talking about like a pantheon team.
The only thing I'm going to say, though, Scott, is when people start saying things like this is the best team or is that the best team, you gotta have respect for the past. There's been some pretty good football teams in the short conference. We could sit here and talk another hour about every school's top teams and all that too, but this team was special. There was.
Well, and I think it's also, football to a large degree is a different game in a lot of respects from these teams that, the brick teams of the 1970s and early 80s, or, the Mattawan teams of the late 70s, or even the Jackson teams from 2000, 2001. Although I will say Tom's River North was a throwback team. They were a power running downhill team.
Yeah, correct.
That plays in almost any era of football. Now, granted, the explosiveness they had and their ability to make big plays in the passing game a little bit different. But yeah, they're an old school team in that regard, that it's not like they came out and threw the ball 55 times a game like a more modern, spread type team. So I think it's a great argument, as far as my experience. I mean, you go back a little further than me, but as far as my teams that I experienced, the Middletown South teams of the late 80s and early 90s that were ranked nationally with the Peter brothers and Stephen Pitts, and then the No-Shawn Middletown South teams and the Jackson Memorial, and then that 2006 Manasquan team. Those are the ones that have always kind of jumped out to me as some of the alts. And the Lacey team in 2010 that basically obliterated everyone on their schedule by 3 or 4 touchdowns. But this team will put themselves right up there with them, or maybe ahead of them.
I went to Tom's River, and already on the GPS, it has Coach Dave Osowitz Road on there. They built the road for him. It's right off of Micah Ford Avenue. It's right there. But those two guys are gonna. I mean, what a great! I really am so happy. Now people are messaging me how good they're going to be next year. That. Let's enjoy this year first. We'll talk about next year in a couple, but let's enjoy it. Very special, talented underclassmen, senior leadership. That senior leadership. You got Ty Kazanowski, you got Bayako, you got Bolin, Josh K, who I think was the glue to that team. I mean, those are key kids that they're going to miss next year. But with that,
not only that, how talented is a team where you can lose your superstar quarterback for large stretches of a state final against a good team and just line up Pruitt in the backfield and other guys and run Wildcat and still maybe throw the ball and not really miss too much. I mean, that's an incredible team.
Coach Osowitz, go ahead, take another drink. We got Pruitt in there. TJ Valeri. I mean, that sophomore TJ Valeri could probably start 90% of the teams in Ocean County. I mean, they have some talent. Their backups are that. And wait till you see the all-star teams. They got a lot of their personnel groups in their all-star teams. He had some talent. But when you have talent like that, you also got to manage the egos, and that's their personalities. So you have a bunch of different guys and strong-minded guys, and it just was great. It was definitely the chemistry was perfect with the coaches and the players.
Yeah, I think I'm most proud of them is they never got really overconfident. A team like that can fall in love with their press clippings and their video highlights and everything all over the internet. We're unstoppable. We're amazing. And, kind of roll the balls out and give not 100% effort. But every game they were out there to prove that they were the best team by far on the field. They never really had much of a letdown at all in a 14-game season. To not have any letdown at all, that's a real credit to Coach Osowitz and his staff to keep everybody focused, to keep them productive, and to not make them sort of fall in love with their own hype. It kept them on track. Now you can absolutely drink in your own hype. You achieved it. You can sit there and argue to everybody, we're the greatest team this area has ever seen.
I was at the Battle of the Beach week 0, and all of a sudden Washington Township scored, and all of a sudden it was 1 touchdown score in the third quarter. At that point, I never thought they would be Group 5 state champions. I mean, they were battling to win that game, and they just got better each week.
Right. And in games they were favored by, 1 million touchdowns against most of the teams in their division.
And they still covered.
They still used that time to get better. They didn't just sort of go through the motions against those teams. they kept working on different wrinkles and important things that came into play as the stakes got bigger and the games got bigger. And now, yeah, they deserve their place among. And you know what? The thing that also is, I've known some of those coaches for a long time, and talking to them, they said this is one of the best group of players off the field that they've also had.
Yeah.
They're not just talented. During the game, they may get a little feisty, they may be a little physical, but off the field, they said they're all like, quality kids, and it's a team. Because the other thing is, I've talked to coaches over the years, right, that have had these absolutely stacked teams, and at the end of the year, they say, I hated coaching that team more than any team the whole year I've ever had in my career. Like it was a headache every week dealing with it, but talking to North, they say this was a great experience on and off the field, which is really special because you don't always get that. A lot of times you can have the great talent, but you wish you had, different character players, even if it meant losing a few more games because the headaches that can come with these really stacked teams.
The one thing Coach Oz, I think that he specifies to his guys is stay off social media. What do they call it? The rat poison at Alabama. Don't believe all that stuff. People want to, divide you with this and that. And they kind of stayed away from the social media a little bit. That's hard for a 17, 18-year-old kid to not look at their phones or, respond to a Twitter or messages on Instagram because everybody's trying to outdo everybody. Us websites, we're trying to get all these following and this and that. But they kind of kept it very professional. And that says a lot about their program doing that, especially they were the hot topic of the state. You know what I love to see, though? I wish there was one more week, and it was Bergen Catholic versus Tom Driven North. I still think that would be a game. Maybe they wouldn't be favorite.
I think all of North Jersey just rolled their eyes. They, everybody always thinks that because I remember, not to keep harping on the same team, but no Sean Moreno his senior year, that Middletown South team. It was between them and Don Bosco for the final number one in the state, and I believe South got it. And all the North Jersey people were groaning like, "Oh, come on! If we played them, we blow them out. Our schedule's different." But you're right. You always that would be. It's almost like what the Tournament of Champions was for years in all these other sports. Yeah, if you were a public school, you got to test yourself against the best non-public teams. But
the Star Ledger, the Star Ledger was engineered by North Jersey anyway, so that's why it really took a good team in South or Central Jersey to overtake one of those powers. But I think it would be a good game. You can't say it won't. I mean, these guys are not going to get blown out by Bergen Catholic. They may lose to them or they may beat them, but it would have been a great game. I think a public school and a non-public playing it out.
Yeah, because rarely do you even have a public school in this day and age where that's in the conversation, where it's like, well, they might actually be able to beat them or give them a game. Usually that top non-public school is so far ahead of everyone and so loaded with FBS talent that it's like it wouldn't even be a contest. But, North has multiple – I mean, Michael Ford, Jalen Matthews, Pruitt, Council. I mean, they got guys that play for anybody in New Jersey. Don Bosco and Bergen Catholic included. So yeah, it certainly would be interesting to see them test themselves against them. But but sometimes I like the fun of the argument. It keeps people engaged in the sport now. They'll be arguing the whole offseason. Oh, we could have beat them. Oh, they could have never competed with us. So it kind of keeps you talking about football even into the offseason, which is always a good thing.
It was amazing. The next day after the state championship game, Micah Ford got a scholarship offer. No crap. It's going to flow with him. He's got 3 right now. Albany just offered him. But the other guys, because I talked to Coach Oz, and he goes, it is busy as heck in the hallways now because they're visiting everybody, the seniors, the underclassmen. He's got everybody entertaining, all these college interests. It's an exciting time for him right now. It really is.
Right, and you think about a public school team where potentially your whole starting lineup, pretty much every single kid will be playing in college. That's rare.
Yep.
That's really rare. I mean, obviously all teams have stars, but your like fourth lineman isn't always going to play. But I could see everybody on that team that starts going to play from the D3 level on up.
We talk about Jalen Matthews. He's got 27 offers. Power 5 type kid, top recruit in sophomore class. You have Justin K. Josh K. Then you have Justin, the other tackle, 6'7", 290. He's a junior.
Right.
He's going to get looks. He's going to get looks. So, they're huge. They are huge, and he's got a lot of guys that may not be on the radar or on the radar now because of their resume.
Right. And transitioning from them, they're the headliners of the Shore Conference, the final #1 team, top public school team in the state. But we can't leave out Rumson,